Hi boys and girls. Today's adventure with Where is Mrs. Lokey is finding ourselves inside somewhere, and I'm sure if you look very closely you will guess very quickly where I am. So today we're going to start off with chapter 4 of How to Eat Fried Worms. I hope you are following me. If you have not joined our YouTube channel, I'm really encouraging you to do that. We have lots of neat videos. This whole book, as I'm reading it, will be on there, and then the principal challenge afterwards. So tune in and watch each day, Where is Mrs. Lokey? And please comment if you guess. Yesterday, I didn't have anyone comment. The day before I did, and they were right. So tune in each day, and today we're going to begin with chapter 4, The First Worm. The huge night crawler sprawled limply in the center of the platter, brown and steaming. Boiled, said Tom. We boiled it? Billy stormed about the barn, kicking barrels and posts, arguing. A night crawler isn't a worm. If it was a worm, it would be called a worm. A night crawler's a night crawler. Finally, Joe ran off to his father's dictionary. Night crawler, noun, earthworm. A large earthworm found on the soil surface at night. Billy kicked a barrel. It still wasn't fair. He didn't care what any dictionary said. Everybody knew the difference between a night crawler and a worm. Look at the thing. It was as big as a souvenir pencil from the Empire State Building. Yuck, he poked it with his finger. Alan said they'd agreed right at the start that he and Joe could choose the worms. If Billy was going to cheat, the bet was off. He got up and started for the door. He guessed he had other things to do besides argue all day long. So Tom took Billy aside into a horse stall and put his arm around Billy's shoulders and talked to him about George Cunningham's brother's mini bike and how they could ride it on the trail under the power lines behind Odell's farm. Up and down the hills, bounding over rocks, rum, rum. Sure, it was a big worm, but it'd only be a couple more bites. Did he want to lose a mini bike over 2 bites? Slop enough mustard and ketchup and horseradish on it, and he wouldn't even taste it. Yeah, said Billy, I could probably eat this one, but I got to eat 15. You can't quit now, said Tom. Look at them. He nodded at Alan and Joe, waiting outside the orange crates. They'll tell everybody you were chicken. It'll be all over school. Come on. He led Billy back to the orange crates, sat him down, tied the napkin around his neck. Alan flourished the knife and fork. Ketchup? Asked Joe, showing his teeth. Cut it out, said Tom. Here. He glopped ketchup and mustard and horseradish on the night crawler, squeezed a few drops of lemon juice, and salted and peppered it. Billy closed his eyes and opened his mouth. Tom sliced off the end of the night crawler and forked it up. But just as he was about to poke it into Billy's open mouth, Billy closed his mouth and opened his eyes. No, let me do it. Tom handed him the fork. Billy glazed at the dripping ketchup and mustard, thinking, it's all right talking about eating worms, but doing it? Tom whispered into his ear, mini bike. Billy poked the fork into his mouth, chewed furiously, gulped and gulped. His eyes crossed, swam, squinched shut. He flapped his arms wildly, and then opening his eyes, he grinned beautifully up at Tom. Superb, Gaston. Tom cut another piece, put ketchup and mustard and salt and peppered it, and handed the fork to Billy. Billy slugged it down, smacking his lips. And so they proceeded, now sprinkling on cinnamon and sugar, or a bit of cheese, some cracker crumbs, or Worcester sauce, until there was nothing on the plate but a few stray dabs of ketchup and mustard. Well, said Billy, standing up and wiping his mouth with his napkin, well done. Let me look in your mouth, said Alan. Yeah, said Joe, see if you swallowed it all. Look as long as you want. Alan and Joe scrutinized the inside of his mouth. Okay, said Tom, leave him alone now. Come on, 1 down and 14 to go. How'd it taste, said Alan. Good, very fine, very fine. He flapped his arms like a big bird and began to hop around the barn crying, very fine, very fine. Alan and Joe and Tom looked worried. Yeah? How are you feeling? Tom asked. Yeah, stop flapping around and come tell us how you're feeling, said Joe. They huddled together by the orange crates as Billy hopped around and around, flapping his arms. Very fine, very fine. Alan whispered, he's crackers. Joe edged toward the door. Don't let him see we're afraid. Crazy people are like dogs. If they see you're afraid, they'll attack. And there are a couple of pictures on this with Billy flapping his arms. Do you think he's putting on a show, or do you think it really made him crackers? It couldn't be, whispered Tom, standing his ground. One worm? Billy kept screeching around, hopping higher and higher and drilling from the mouth. Come on, whispered Joe to Tom. Hey, Billy, burst out Tom suddenly in a hearty, quavering voice. Cut it out, will you? I want to ask you something. Billy's arms flapped slower. He tiptoed around Tom as his head cocked to one side, his cheeks puffed out. Tom hugged himself and chuckled nervously. Cut it out, will you, Billy? Billy pounced, and Joe and Alan fled, the barn door banging behind them. Billy rolled on the floor, helpless with laughter. Tom clambered up, brushing himself off. Did you see their faces, Billy said, laughing? Climbing over each other out the door? Oh, geez, Joe was pale as an onion. Yeah, said Tom, ha-ha, you fooled them. And then he crawled over to the door, peered out through a knothole. Look at them, they're peeking up over the stone wall. Watch this. The door swung slowly open. Screeching, Billy hopped into the door sill, into the yard and onto a stump, splashed into a puddle, flapping his arms and rolling his head. Alan and Joe galloped up the hill through the high grass yelling, Here he comes, get out of the way. And then Billy stopped hopping and climbing up on the stump, called in a shrill girlish voice, Oh boys, where are you going? I've got something to show you, idle boys. Alan and Joe stopped and looked back. Are you scared? Who's scared? Asked Alan. Yelled Joe. I guess I can go home without being called scared if I want to. Well, why are you in a hurry? Shouted Billy. I just remembered I was supposed to help my mother wash windows this afternoon, said Alan. That's all. He turned and started up through the meadow, his hands in his pocket. Yeah, me too, said Joe, and he trudged after Alan. We will begin chapter 5 tomorrow. I hope you have taken the initiative to work on your distant learning plan. You boys and girls are very smart, and I am missing you. I love you, and tune in tomorrow for Where is Mrs. Lokey?